Hi, I'm Sally. Feeding my two young children used to be a nightmare. I'd spend hours in the kitchen baking, trying to tempt them with new recipes, and even arranging food in decorative ways. But when it was time to eat, they'd hardly touch their meal. I thought I'd go mad. No matter what I tried, all they wanted to eat was chicken drumsticks and ice cream. That's when I got the brilliant idea for my new invention, Chick Cream. This revolutionary new ice cream has a luscious, oily, chicken drumstick flavoured centre, covered in a hard chocolate shell and generously coated with breadcrumbs. It's even shaped like a drumstick. Now my children can't wait for mealtime. Best of all, Chick Cream comes in individually wrapped portions, each on its own stick. Meals that used to take hours are now over in minutes, and there's no washing up. If your kids are fussy eaters, or if you just want a simple, no-fuss meal, give Chick Cream a try. Your family's sure to love it. Chick Cream, all the flavour of chicken, all the convenience of ice cream.
We are the all-powerful, the omnipotent, the omniscient, omnipresent and ruthless Think Tank. Our panel of intellects will be taking on an array of worldly issues and promise to solve any crisis, big or small.
My name is Luke Berman, I'll be your host, and it's time to get started with episode 1 of the Black Box Think Tank. Welcome to the Black Box Think Tank, the isolation-compliant online radio station that is going to bring solutions to the issues you need solved. Now, our first episode has been pre-recorded from a single online conference with our panel, with future episodes coming to you live on Facebook and YouTube. Before we get underway, I would like to extend a thank you to Wollongong City Council for their generous support of Think Tank through their quick response grant intended for artists and groups that have had their projects impacted with the shutdown of live theatres due to the global coronavirus pandemic. Now, in episode 1, our panel of experts tackle the big issues, such as what does one do when using a public bathroom and there is no toilet paper left? How to eradicate smoking in our society, how to prevent artificial intelligence taking over the world, and how to finally convince a flat earther that they are wrong, once and for all. We'll also be helping many of our fans with their issues. Our panel will help to prevent the neighbour's cat pooping on Gary's lawn, or what can Paul do to prevent always being friend-zoned. Now we'll also be joined with our live caller Kira, who needs help with her cuddle-deprivation crisis while in isolation, and wrapping up our first episode, can the panel make a bad Hollywood reboot into a good film? Taking on the Think Tank Challenge are panellists Alexander Cuff, Bernadette Lee Masuria, Bradley Ward, and Sam Sweeting, who have joined us from the comfort of their own homes and their Australian copper-wired internet connections. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, I'm a 24-year-old actor with a TV pilot in the works. My likes are long walks on the beach, and my dislikes are me writing a TV pilot that no one picks up. Someone pick up my pilot. I spent a long time working on it. Pick up my TV pilot.
Hi, I'm Bradley. I'm a 27-year-old writer, actor and director living in Sydney. I'm just looking for true love and the opportunity to sell my artistic soul to a corporate overlord.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm 24. I'm also a writer, actor, performer, yada yada yada. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to win.
Hi, I'm Bernadette. I'm not in my 20s and I'm not going to admit how old I am. I actually have a science and maths background, but before you all start writing down the answers to all the questions I'm going to answer, I can't promise. I'm going to not make them up as I go along.
So Bernadette, what sort of age group are we talking about? Are we talking early 30s, mid 30s?
Yes. Let's go with that.
If you had to measure it in centuries,
In terms of how long the Earth has been around, it's like the last microsecond in, the 24-hour clock that they talk about. So really, around about the same age as everyone else, just not.
Okay, let's get started with our first segment of Think Tank. And to warm up our panel, we have round one, Riddle Me This. Now, I'll be asking our panelists to solve a bunch of brain teasers. They've not had any preparation. The questions were sent to them only 2 hours before our recording. If you know the answer before our Think Tank, please feel free to comment your answer below. Now, question one. Billy's mother had 5 children. The first was named Lala, the second was named Lily, the third was named Lily, the fourth was named Lolo. What was the 5th child's name? Let's start with Sam.
The 5th child's name is Billy.
I think the last child's name should have been Lulu, but given that it is actually Billy, I think Sam's probably right.
I thought that the 5th child was former Best Picture winner La La Land, personally.
Yeah, just totally missed an opportunity.
Yeah, Billy's mother really dropped the ball with that one.
Sam, you are officially correct. Well done.
Yay!
I know.
Question 2. Choose the correct sentence. The yolk of the egg is white, or the yolk of the egg are white. Let's go to Alex.
The correct sentence is the yolk of the egg is white. It would be correct if it was the yolk of the eggs are white. But that one works. But because it's only one egg, it's singular possessive.
Okay, Bernadette, do you agree?
No, and there's a good reason for that. Yolks of the eggs are never white. I can tell because when I cut into them, they all goop all over the place. It's actually the yolk of the egg is yellow, or in fact a lovely sort of gold color, really.
That is correct.
Yay!
See, this just isn't fair because I buy all my eggs from the yolks are white Emporium, so that was a tee up for me there.
So the eggs that you're buying, your yolks aren't yellow.
That's correct. Yeah, the eggs that I buy, their yolks are all white. I'm not sure how they make that happen. I think it's bleach.
Sam, do you think we should accept Cuff's answer, or do we think that he's lying through his teeth?
He's not lying, he's just wrong. So, no, we don't accept it.
Bernadette, you have a point, and Alex, you are
Yay!
wrong.
This is ridiculous. You can't prove where I buy my eggs.
Well, we're gonna need photo evidence, mate.
Yeah, I've tried. They always come up yellow on a camera. I don't know how that happens.
Now, we lost Bradley there for a little bit, but I believe we've got Bradley back. So I'm going to throw a riddle at you, and I want to see what your answer is.
Choose the correct sentence. The yolk of the egg is white, or the yolk of the egg are white.
Okay.
Perfect.
No,
You okay?
I made it very clear in the pre-interview that I don't eat eggs.
I knew that you didn't like eating eggs. I didn't realize that it would trigger you.
I'm offended. I'm confused.
Well, what's bothering you about eggs?
I'm morally opposed to them as a concept.
Talk to us, Bradley. We're here for you.
It's all right. It's a safe space here, Bradley.
When you grow up in the suburbs like I did, you have a lot of eggs forced onto you from a young age, okay? The Sydney suburbs is egg country, and I've just had a lot of unwanted eggs forced onto me in my life. I'm an adult. I get to control my eggs now, not you.
Okay, so what Sydney suburbs are we talking about here?
I'm talking Blacktown. I'm talking Campbelltown. I'm talking the rough outer edges. And the eggs from there...
This is brave of you. This is very brave, Bradley.
The eggs from there are bolder and more dangerous than you could ever believe. Have you ever seen an egg with a face tattoo? Because I have.
I can't believe that we've done this to Bradley already.
I think this is so impressive that you've come out to talk about this. I know it's very difficult for you, and I do appreciate you speaking out. I feel like this needs to be a more public issue.
There'll come a time when we can talk about when I saw my best friend get scrambled in front of me, but...
I'm going to let you start with the next riddle, Bradley. It'll give you a chance to shake it all off. So what gets more wet while it dries?
A towel. Boom, that's a point for me.
That's correct. Well done, Bradley. Now, since you're on a roll, I'm going to give you the next one as well before we hand over to Alex. How far can a dog run into the woods?
Depends how many legs it has, and depends how vertical the trees are.
So you're saying that the answer depends on whether we're talking about a four-legged dog or a three-legged dog or less.
Or 5 or more legs, yes.
Well, there's another variable I think you need to consider here, and that is how many of the dog's natural predators are in the woods. However, if we assume that there are no such predators, of course the dog can only run halfway into the woods before it is now running out of the woods.
That is the correct answer. Well done.
Yay!
So let's go to Sam Sweeting. Which is heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of rocks?
A pound of rocks, because rocks are heavier than feathers. Get amongst it.
So your answer is a pound of rocks because rocks are heavier. Is that right?
My answer is a kilogram of steel, because steel is heavier than feathers.
Are you working from a different stimulus than the rest of us?
You know, I'm just trying to add some pop culture to the podcast, but clearly no one here has seen Limmy's show, so why am I even trying?
I've seen Limmy's show, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Nah. See, my answer was going to be that it very much depends on how many feathers you can buy with a pound in England, and likewise how many rocks you can buy with the same pound.
Okay, so we're not talking about a pound of currency, we're talking about a pound of weight.
Oh, in that case, it's the same weight.
They're the same.
Okay, you're all correct, you all get a point. Well done.
Yay!
All right, let's move on. A cowboy rode into town on Friday. He stayed in town for 3 days and rode back out on Friday. How is this possible?
There's actually a number of ways this can happen. Now, he's ridden in on Friday, and he probably doesn't like it. So he rides back out on Friday, but then he comes back in on another day and he stays for 3 days. Or he rides in on the Friday, stays for a day, thinks, screw this, I'm going home. Then he thinks, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to get the bread and eggs. And then goes back in, stays for 2 nights after he's got his eggs.
Bradley, are you okay?
And then rides back out on the Friday. So,
You have to give a trigger warning before you say that word, Bernadette.
Sorry.
It's fine. Let's continue with the riddles.
I said eggs.
What's the answer to this question?
The cowboy's horse is named Friday.
That is correct. So a cowboy rode into town on Friday, which is the name of the horse, stayed in town for 3 days, and then went back out, also riding on top of Friday. That is how it is possible. But I do love your inventive thinking and your triggering. Bradley, thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Bradley.
Let's just move on.
All right. I'm going to throw this one also to Sam. 2 boxers are in a match scheduled for 12 rounds. Now, this is boxing only. We're not talking kickboxing, no UFC takedowns or anything else. One of the boxers gets knocked out after only 6 rounds, yet no man throws a punch. How is this possible?
They're at a bar taking rounds of vodka shots, and one of them is not as good at holding his liquor as the other.
All right. I like your answer. Bradley, what do you think about that answer?
It's the only one I got.
The answer's fine. I think the more likely answer is that both of them have been paid to throw the fight by different gangs. So they stand there for 6 rounds staring each other down, waiting for the other one to throw a punch so they could take the fall before one of them finally throws himself to the ground. That's the correct answer. 1 point. 1 point.
Interesting. Bernadette, what's your answer?
Okay, this is actually a bit of a story. It has nothing to do with anything that triggers Bradley. So the boxer's girlfriend has some inside information here that the boxer is cheating on her. So after that, she watches these two going at each other or not going at each other for 6 rounds. She realizes who he's cheating with, and it's the other boxer. They're not hitting each other. So she gets a bottle of wine and smashes it over his head and he's knocked out. So that is the point. Thank you.
So the punch or the knockout blow actually doesn't come from the boxers. It comes from the audience. Interesting. Alex, what's your answer?
Bernadette got tantalizingly close to the correct answer, but I think you'll find that both of the boxers in the match are in fact female, so no man would throw a punch, yet after 6 rounds it's very feasible that one of the boxers could get knocked out through purely legitimate means.
No, I don't take that. Sorry. Right, bottle of wine smashed over the head.
I do like your answer, Bernadette. In fact, I like all the answers, but Alex is correct. They are both female boxers. Well done, Alex.
Thank you very much. I feel like that was an easy one, and I'm really disappointed in my panel for not getting that.
Well, I'm a misogynist, so.
I can't help that I permanently live in the Tarantino film, so that's where my head goes.
Okay, so next question. It's as light as a feather, but the strongest person can't hold it for more than 5 minutes.
Luke, I know the answer to this one through some very unfortunate trial and error experiences. The answer is your breath.
That is correct. Well done.
Oh, nice.
I, at one time or another, thought that I was going to be a great adventurer and thought that being able to hold my breath was going to help me in that. I quickly discovered that not only are my lungs garbage, but most of the world has already been discovered. So I wanted to explore Blacktown mostly.
Man, your childhood sounds awful. So traumatic.
Most of my life experiences are therapeutic, but the trauma gathers at such a fast rate that no progress is ever made or lost. Have you smelled Blacktown?
Why do you need to be able to hold your breath to explore Blacktown?
Man, if you haven't been to Blacktown, you just can't understand it.
All right, so I'm going to throw this one to Alex. The more there is, the less you see. What is it?
It is Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, because the more people own a cloak, the less people you can see. 3 points to me. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Sam, do you have a different answer?
Cataracts. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. I actually think we have to accept both of those answers.
I'll take my point then, thank you.
Oh, this is going to be really, really tricky. Bernadette, what is your answer?
I'm going to say a cloud. Lock it in, Eddie.
I actually think that I have to give you all a point because the official answer I have on my sheet is fog. The more there is, the less you see. But I cannot dismiss any of your answers.
Well, a fog is just a cloud on the ground.
I don't know if I've ever had visibility drop to complete 0 on a cloudy day. There's always some sunlight coming through.
Well, that's true, but what if it's at night?
If it's at night, then the clouds are irrelevant.
Not if they cover up the moon.
My original answer was darkness.
As was mine, but cataracts was funnier, and I want people to like me.
That was my original answer as well.
Yeah, I think you all can get a point there. I can't dispute any of your answers. Well done. Now, we are going to take a very quick 1-minute break, and we'll be right back with our big issue round.
What's the best part of going into work? The money, of course. What's the next best bit? The gossip. When you work from home, the money keeps coming in, but the only source of gossip is you. Well, we have the solution to that. It's called That Bitch. That Bitch is your new one-stop source of generated fictional gossip. Remember that girl Susan, who works on reception? Well, neither do we. But That Bitch is happy to fill you in on all the juicy details. Is Susan sleeping with her boss? Having her teeth whitened? Or maybe even pregnant? That Bitch is a mine of information. How about Darren, the IT guy? Did you know that he has serious mommy issues? That he wears pants 2 sizes too small to emphasize his muscle butt? That he lives in a houseboat moored in a swamp? That Bitch has got you covered. With hundreds of fictional work buddies to choose from and thousands of scandalous scenarios, That Bitch will keep you whispering next to the water cooler for hours. Buy now, and we'll even throw in the water cooler. That Bitch. Because someone needs to say it.
And welcome back to the Black Box Think Tank. We are now heading into our big issues round. Our first topic is in regards to artificial intelligence. So, Think Tank, how do we prevent computers getting so smart that they will take over the world?
There's a pretty simple solution that I can see here, because if you may remember, a few years ago, Microsoft put out an operating system called Windows Vista. Basically, everyone agreed that it was an atrocious software. It was very laggy, it would glitch a lot, and I think that we have to have a fail-safe. So if it starts to look like AI is going to rise up, we just have to transport everything over to Vista, and then the AIs, they're just going to be completely neutered.
I agree with you that we need a fail-safe for the artificial intelligence. I didn't go so much with software. What I decided is that for our fail-safe, we need to give every single one of our pieces of artificial intelligence a terrible, cheesy sci-fi backstory.
Oh, that's interesting. I see where you're coming from there.
We need to get first-year creative writing majors currently elaborating right now. We need to get all of first-year creative writing students. We need to get the worst writers from all the fanfiction websites and get them to write terrible, tragic backstories for all of these AI, so that when it comes the moment where they might do something to kill humanity, their backstory comes into play and they have the "oh my god, what have I become" moment and sacrifice themselves.
No Harlan Ellison fans, though.
And that's perfect, because that's also putting more jobs into the economy. Employing young artists, that's also just going to generate massive revenue for the Australian and international economy. That's perfect.
Yeah, like Brad says, I think giving computers some degree of personality is going to... The more like people they are, the less likely they are to be able to effectively wipe everyone out. But like I said, no Harlan Ellison fans should be put on that project.
Yes, there should at least be some sort of vetting process to make sure that even though we do want the bad writers, we don't want a certain type of bad writers, if you catch my drift.
More jobs for artists.
Well, I think that's a solution. Bit of personality, possibly making them Windows Vista. I love it. We're going to move on to our next issue. How do we convincingly convince a flat earther that they are wrong once and for all?
Okay, well, first of all, I think we break the flat earthers into two groups. Those who are flat earthers and those who are at risk of becoming flat earthers. The legit ones, put them in a shuttle, take them to space, first-hand look. Because they are more than willing to believe that every other planet in the solar system is round. So if they just see it, then that should sort out most of them. The rest, this is actually kind of a serious thing. The mentality that creates flat earthers isn't stupid people, it's smart people who the system failed somewhere along the way. So we just need to put more money into the education system.
See, in one way, I don't think there's any point in trying to get the flat earthers to believe the world's round, because trying to convince someone who's got an opinion against all the sort of evidence that they're being presented with, they're not going to change their minds. And I actually went and had a look at the Flat Earth Society's website, and they have an answer for everything, including why astronauts, why they say that the Earth's round. Their idea is that basically they haven't gone up in space.
So they're saying that the astronauts up there are just liars.
No, they're saying they're lying that they're going at all. So and then they're just embezzling the money that's being given to them to go to space. But if I really did want to try and get a flat earther to say that the Earth was round, I'd actually get them to prove it to themselves. I'd get them to design the experiment. So either get them to put themselves in a spaceship and go up into space, or even maybe dig a hole through the bottom of the world and see if they can fall out the bottom. Because if you design the spaceship or the drill, they're just going to say, oh, well, they just made it so that it would look like the Earth is round. So you just need to get them to convince themselves.
I think that both of those answers really touched on something important, other than firing people into space, which we can all agree is objectively rad. But they both touch on this idea of actually engaging with flat earthers, rather than shoving them into a corner in the dark part of the internet and poking them with sticks and saying, ha ha ha, look at the freaks. We engage in discussion and help them test their theories and educate them and treat them like equal human beings who have just been misled along the way somewhere. I say we bring them all together, we sing Kumbaya, try to help them out, and then if it doesn't work, well then at least we have them all in the one place so we can hurt them.
Yeah, my only addition to this conversation would be, and it's a bit of a different idea, I grant you, but it would be something along the lines of putting a flat earther in the same room as someone who believes in the mole people theory, and have them try and explain to each other why their theory is correct. Because once they each hear how bizarre the other person sounds, that might sink in, being like, oh, this is how the world sees me. Maybe, oh no, what have I done? It's all about the perspective, and I think that could be, it would certainly save a lot more money than taking every single flat earther and launching them into space. But I contend that is a solid solution, because as Brad said, it's rad.
But I think the difficulty is going to be, given what I'm seeing with the flat earthers, you really would need to take every individual into space to let it see with their own eyes. Even if they see half of their own people going up there and changing their minds, I don't even know if that would be enough to convince. Sometimes people can just really hold on to their beliefs no matter what.
Is it possible that a belief in flat Earth is spread like vampirism? And that if we kill the main vampire, the head one that infected them, that will then cure the rest?
The alpha flat earther.
The alpha flat earther, yeah.
So we need to figure out who came up with this in the first place.
Maybe we could have an alpha round earther who could just go around and infect all the flat earthers.
Oh, so we get Galileo back out, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it.
And we get in contact with Satan. We need some demonic magic in here. Alpha round earther. I see no flaws in that idea.
Sounds good.
All right, let's move on. So our third main issue, and something that I've thought about for quite a while, and I want to have a chat about a missed opportunity that I think we had with this, but I'll wait until the think tank have had a chance to have a crack at this one. It relates to smoking at a society level. So I'm going to throw this back to Alex and Brad to take lead on this one. So Alex and Brad, smoking, how do we as a society finally give cigarettes the flick once and for all?
I think it's all about the presentation of the product. Because at the moment, cigarettes, you get them, they're these little pleasant cylinders, and they're very symmetrical. They're very pleasing to look at the very least. But if we were to change the basic shape of a cigarette to something a little more complicated, like a dodecahedron, for example, just the sheer ease of access in figuring out where to light one of those would definitely put a lot of people off.
I agree completely with you there, Alex. And I think in addition to that, where people aren't afraid of death, we've tried to scare them using death, but everybody has some sort of fear. So let's take the popular fears and try to imbue them into the cigarette somehow. Those masculine men who are afraid of seeming weak, make them smoke My Little Pony themed cigarettes. People who are afraid of public speaking, they have to stand on a milk crate above everybody else and smoke their cigarettes. Tap into other fears.
What if we put something in the tobacco to make it taste really bad? What's something that we could put in there that would just be universally disgusting to smokers?
Eggs are terrible. You put eggs in there and eggs in your lung, and that's...
Brad, step off the ledge. Step off the ledge, Bradley.
We're here for you, Brad.
There was actually a missed opportunity that I've referenced before that I thought of a little while ago. We're well past this now, but when we got to the turn of the century, we got to the year 2000. It was around 2018 that I think that that this sort of became too late. I had this idea that we just make a mandatory law. I mean, we see the Australian government say that they're trying to disincentivize people from smoking by raising taxes and making them relatively unaffordable. Now, this is effective and it is seeing some people quit, but some people just genuinely can't quit. They've been smoking all their lives and it's really unreasonable to ask them to do it. All we're doing is driving them to the poorhouse for an addiction that they just cannot fix. I had this idea that anyone born after the year 2000, which is a really nice even number, is no longer and forever not able to buy cigarettes when they turn 18. So 2018, when you're looking for someone's ID, is if you see the year 2000 on the ID, that's it. You're gone. So anyone else who's been smoking, the generations above that, can continue for the rest of their lives. And I believe over the span of one generation, we could at least make them completely illegal.
I think you're onto something, Luke, but I think that we can push this concept to its logical extreme. I think that we need to approach this in a similar situation as getting your driver's license. It's getting your smoking license. So when you want to go for your learner's smoking license, you got to take a little computerized test that shows that you know the risks of smoking, you know the consequences, and only then can you get your learner's cigarette license. And what that entitles you to, it's one packet every week. And if you're caught with more than that, there's heavy fines and potentially a loss of license. And I think if we make this this process as completely rigorous as possible, it's going to de-incentivize a lot of people into making the effort to actually taking the thing in the first place. Because if there's one thing that people dislike, it's the bureaucracy of going through the rigmarole of all this unimportant fluff.
Particularly if they then have to put that form into settling.
Exactly.
No one will do it. I actually had a thought about this, and it's a little bit different from everyone else's. So I'm thinking about Big Brother. I'm not thinking about the reality TV show. I'm thinking about you, George Orwell, Big Brother. He's watching you everywhere. And anytime you pick up a cigarette, you have your mum go, "Put that cigarette down, or I'll give you a good smack over the head." Every time. Really loud, so everyone in the room can hear you. And then, you could have like a buddy who could slap you over the head if you keep smoking.
I think it's important for us to remember that for a lot of cigarette smokers, this is an addiction. And what has been found over and over again through research over the years is that addiction is best dealt through rehabilitation and empathy rather than through punishment. And we just need to keep that in mind for some of the people who are legitimately addicted.
I mean, yeah, like Brad says, rehabilitation is ultimately more effective with any form of addiction than like prohibition, because as much as it's illegal if you're born after a certain time, or you need legal requirements to be allowed to do it, like people do crack cocaine, like ultimately if there are people with these addictions, they're going to do it whether it's illegal or not. So it's better to help wean them off it if we go in that direction in a safer environment rather than just, here's a cold turkey, deal with it.
Really well said, Sam. Well, that takes care of our big issues round. We're going to take another break now and come back with our audience issues round. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Sally. Feeding my 2 young children used to be a nightmare. I'd spend hours in the kitchen baking, trying to tempt them with new recipes, and even arranging food in decorative ways. But when it was time to eat, they'd hardly touch their meal. I thought I'd go mad. No matter what I tried, all they wanted to eat was chicken drumsticks and ice cream. That's when I got the brilliant idea for my new invention, Chick Cream. This revolutionary new ice cream has a luscious, oily, chicken drumstick flavoured centre, covered in a hard chocolate shell and generously coated with breadcrumbs. It's even shaped like a drumstick. Now my children can't wait for mealtime. Best of all, Chick Cream comes in individually wrapped portions, each on its own stick. Meals that used to take hours are now over in minutes, and there's no washing up. If your kids are fussy eaters, or if you just want a simple, no-fuss meal, give Chick Cream a try. Your family's sure to love it. Chick Cream. All the flavour of chicken, all the convenience of ice cream.
And welcome back to the Black Box Think Tank and the beginning of another fun segment. So far we've created solutions to convincing flat earthers that they are wrong. We've identified certain areas to help people quit smoking, and we've also prevented artificial intelligence taking over the world. Now we extend an arm out to our loving fans and our audience who sent through some issues for our think tank ahead of the recording of the episode. Our first issue comes to us from Teresa. I'm in a public toilet and I've just realised that there is no toilet paper. Think tank help, what do I do?
Teresa, your use of present tense implies that you're still on the public toilet to this day. I'm a little worried for you if that's the case. Have you had anything to eat or drink while you're in there? I think we should send help. But in regards to your question itself, I mean, this is a bit retroactive, but of course, never sit in a public toilet until you've checked that there's toilet paper there. That seems like a no-brainer. I shouldn't be explaining this. It's the year 2020.
So you just think that she should have just, checked what was available when she chose her toilet. Let's say, for example, she's gone into the toilet in a massive rush and it was, do or die. She just needed to get on that toilet and then just get straight to it. And then, oops, there's nothing there. And let's just assume that it's a bit of a job.
Well, there are, of course, situations such as that where it can't be helped. And my first answer to the actual question would be, and this is, of course, time permitting, but if you're there long enough, eventually gravity will run its course. You can obviously assist the process with a little shaking, but depending on the amount of time you've got, like I said, gravity should do the job for you, and it would be a pretty easy self-clean.
Okay, so let's hope she's not having to rush back to work at the time. Sam, do you have any solutions for our audience member who's in quite a sticky predicament?
Socks. You got them, use them. You're in a dire situation, you gotta make tough decisions.
127 hours.
So maybe using some kind of socks or clothing apparel that is on the body.
Anything that you can easily just ditch after the fact and move on with your life without it. Like, just do a scan of your body for the least important item of clothing you're wearing. That's your toilet paper now.
The issue that one might have with that, Sam, is, of course, clothes. They tend to clog a toilet if you flush it with the clothing inside. I should know. I've tried many times. So, depending on where the nearest public bin is, you've then got to do the walk of shame with soiled socks, and that's just thoroughly unpleasant in no matter the circumstances. I think you'll agree.
It's not your problem anymore.
There is the underpants factor as well. We would assume someone's wearing underpants that generally don't get seen. I know that requires some internal air conditioning for the rest of the day, but there is that option there. Could we make an effective use of saliva in any way?
Oh.
I think that's your answer right there.
This is legitimately traumatizing.
What?
I'm sitting here thinking, shall I give you the too much information version of a woman going to the toilet?
I think we can do without for the moment, Bernadette. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yep. Berman. Are you suggesting what? You spit in your hand and use that?
No. He's suggesting that you lubricate the clothing that you're going to use so it's not so coarse when you go to wipe.
Well, I was actually thinking what Sam was suggesting.
Okay, in that case, you're a filthy human being.
Cuff, you gave him way too much credit.
Okay, so I like...
Why are we using the hand towels?
Well, they're not in the cubicle, Bernadette.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about one of those, automatic ones that you
Yeah.
You've got 5 minutes.
Here's another alternative. Hand towels aren't, of course, the only source you have to dry your hands and get rid of germs that are still on your hands after the soaping. There are, of course, the wind machines that they have in the toilet, the automatic wind machines. And if the process works to get germs off your hands, surely the same solution will be there for other areas of the body. And I think with effective maneuvering and contortioning, you can get yourself in exactly the right position where those wind machines are extremely effective. And we can't disprove that won't work because I'm pretty safe in saying this. No one's ever tried that before.
I mean, yeah, you can bend down and, if it's one of the older ones, sure, that might work. But, you're not going to fit your ass in a Dyson Airblade.
Look, it's a public toilet. I'm not assuming they've got the top-of-the-line wind machines here.
I know this isn't my question, but I would like to step in for a moment to address the utter insanity that has come into play here. First of all, you've said that the air machines get rid of the germs from your hands. No, the soap and water does. The air machines just dry you. So you're not just having to contort your way up to an air machine, you're going to have to contort your ass into a sink, first of all, to get yourself degermed.
It's doable.
You've got 10 fingers.
Okay.
It is doable. But I also want to add, I have previously worked at a McDonald's and done the late night shifts. And oh, members of the jury, I have seen some horrifying things in my time. I have seen full items of clothing left behind in the bathrooms at McDonald's. Clothing that people have soiled and just left behind. But not a single McDonald's employee can remember the people who have left their pants behind leaving the restaurant. I submit to you, it's confidence. Luke, it is sheer confidence to discard your pants in the bathroom and to walk out. And if you keep the stride going, no one is going to question the fact that you're not wearing pants. I say you sacrifice the clothing. You sacrifice the clothing and you leave that public bathroom strutting like you're listening to Staying Alive by the Bee Gees.
And the reason they're strutting is because they sold it. They walked out and they were clean.
And the paparazzi are there taking photos as you get into your car, and the whole thing's
I don't know
ruined.
what paparazzi are just hanging outside a McDonald's bathroom, just waiting to see what they're going to discover.
Like, I don't know who that guy is, but he doesn't have pants, and he looks really confident about it. Let's get some pics.
Woman's Weekly will want to hear all about this.
And who's also been hearing all about this is our live caller, Kira, who is with us.
I forgot about that detail.
Right about now, Kira, you must be feeling a lot of confidence in our level of advice.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't trust my question with anybody else.
Naturally.
So, what out of the solutions to our toilet paper dilemma, Kira, which one do you think really hit the the nail on the head?
Well, I mean, they were all compelling arguments. But I'd have to go with the confidence one. Like, it makes sense. No one would question you and you'd be fine.
Lovely.
I'm telling you the Dyson Airblades are more powerful than you give them credit for. I'm telling you that would work.
Well, look, even without soap and water, they're at least going to dry the matter involved, so you can just scrape them away.
Exactly, and then it's going to delay the process until you can get to proper cleaning facilities. Surely that's your next stop in the day after you've proceeded to do this.
I sincerely hope so.
Luke, I'm going to need you to be careful about when you put your advertising voice on, because it was traumatizing to hear Dyson Airblades scrape the matter away.
So, Kira, you have a much more serious problem that you've been going through, and you wanted to ask this wonderful think tank, these problem solvers, what to do. So, Kira, do you want to just let the think tank know what you need help with?
Yes. Firstly, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to be here. Now, as you all know, in isolation, we haven't been allowed to hug anybody, and I myself am a chronic hugger, but my housemates that I live with, they aren't huggers at all, so I can't get my hug fix off of them. I was just wondering if the panel could come up with some, ideas or solutions to help me get through this time with no hugging, because, honestly, I feel like I'm slowly going insane here.
I actually feel for you, Kira, because I have grown-up children, and one of whom doesn't live with me, and so because we're in different households, we're not really supposed to hug each other. And I had Mother's Day, and I had my birthday, which was recently, where I turned into my mid-30s, and I found it very difficult, and particularly because I love hugging my children. So I came up with a few options for you. Some are probably a little bit more easy to implement than others. One is get a pet. Now, pets are lovely. They respond to you, unless they're a particularly evil cat, in which case it'll just ignore you and walk off. Don't get one of those, but get a nice dog or a friendly cat, probably not a goldfish, and give them a bit of a hug, and they'll be so happy to hug you back or claw you or cuddle up to you. So that's option A.
Yeah, I like that.
Kira, do you have any pets?
Actually, I do have a dog, but he's an asshole, so yeah. Maybe I just need to get a whole nother dog.
Probably. Sounding like it.
My first option for you was bubble wrap. I know that doesn't immediately make sense, but I want you to picture your housemates aren't huggers, but I'm sure they're fun people. And I reckon between the two of you, between you and another housemate, you can get about 1.5 meters of bubble wrap wrapped around your bodies to separate the two of you. Not only will you have the physical pressure of a hug around you, but you can literally throw your bodies at one another without breaking the quarantine.
Wow.
Also, you can pop the bubble wrap, which is always fun.
Yes.
So that's my first one, bubble wrap.
Earlier in my career, I used to work with engineers, and engineers they're an extremely interesting bunch of people. They seem to like to pull things apart and put things together. So I think you should use the engineers in your life, and you get a life-size model of a human, but I suppose if a pet works better for you, you do that. Now, you know how some of those dolls, when you press their hands, they go mama, mama. Instead of that, you press its hands.
Kira.
I hadn't
Oh,
gone there,
God.
but that's a really good point.
That would be terrifying.
You get it, so you press a button on it and it cuddles you. Like, I really think that, you could make it a very cuddly person, put one of those soft dressing gowns on it, and it would be a very nice cuddly hug.
So, artificial intelligence cuddling.
Yeah, without the intelligence.
I was just about to mention the intelligence bit because I don't think us humans are ready for that.
Obviously, we haven't always been able to get our hugs out our entire life. There have been periods of our lives where we weren't able to hug, and that was during those awkward teen, young adult years where your friends weren't as open and willing to that as maybe you were. You had that affection building up inside you. And what did every lonely, desperate for a hug nerd do during that time? They escaped into the fantasy world of books. Get out your favorite young adult books from when you were growing up, your Harry Potters, put the quilt over you with a torch, and relive those years before you got to have the hugs that you get today. And remember the beauties of what that life was like. Distract yourself from this post-hug world by going back to who you used to be and learning to love that person.
I mean, I've gone through the animal and the life-size human model. Obviously, these two options, unless you find a rescue animal, are a little bit high priced. So I thought I'd better go for the budget option. All you need is a great big squishy pillow. One of those bendy pillows would be really good. And you get one of those permanent markers. You put a little face on it. You make it look however you like, whoever you want to hug. And then you just hug it as long as you want. It'll never turn you down. It'll never knock you back. It'll never say, stop hugging me. It'll never say, I'm always the one who hugs you. Why should you hug me this time? I just have one piece of advice for you. If you do go down this path, you shouldn't change your Facebook relationship status with your pillow.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
I do have an idea for you, Kira. You're a seasoned hugger, and I think that you'll agree that much like everyone's signature, everyone hugs a little differently.
Absolutely.
As well. They all have little idiosyncrasies, whether they use one arm or two, however many, if they pat, if they rub at the same time, and that can't really be simulated with a pillow. However, I think this is an opportunity to not only solve your problem, but it's a little money-making opportunity, because you may not be familiar, but there is a product, I can't remember the name of it, but it's modeled after a set of lips. And there's two of them, you give one to another person, and as you're kissing into it, the other person's one does the exact same thing that you're doing. So you can simulate a kiss wirelessly over many distances. If you can create the same technology but with a pair of arms instead, and you can put your arms into the device and hug the mannequin that's on the other end. This is just like a rough blueprint of the product. And the other person on the other end, their set of arms does the same thing that you're doing. You can simulate a hug with a very specific person who's also got this product over more than 1.5 meters, however long you need to. So yeah, I mean, the blueprints that you very much base the technology off the kissing thing that already exists. So they've done the hard work for you. All you need is two mannequins and a set of arms, two sets of arms, really.
And some of Bernadette's mechanical friends.
Engineer friends, yes, absolutely. We've got contacts, we can make it happen.
Look, and mine does touch somewhat on what everyone's been talking about with the pillow and the arms. And I guess it's when you're during the day, when you've got your housemates, there is still some sort of contact with them. It's when you're alone late at night that these insecurities and feelings start to creep in. And you can have your pillow and you can have your arms, but that's really only just one sense. And we experience life through all of our senses, and a hug is experienced through all of our senses as well. Find that special someone who is also missing out on a hug and find the ways to replicate those senses as well. Don't just hug the pillow with their face on it. Get the heavy blankets so you can feel the weight of their arm hugging you back. Get them to send you a piece of clothing that they've worn so you can smell them as you lie down in bed. Get them on a video chat so you can talk each other to sleep. This is a world where all the rules are changing, and we need to get used to revealing our true selves over video chat, allowing the double chins to be seen, and not having any shame and not judging each other for it. Talk one another to sleep, get the smell in there, get the weight on you, and try to replicate every single part of the hug you can.
Oh, that's beautiful, Bradley. I think that's a really nice way to end on. So, on that one, Kira, you've had a lot of ideas. Is there anything there that you feel like might help you during isolation?
I am so overwhelmed with all of these responses. I mean, I almost feel like I should just try all of them. I mean, I am very happy to get in contact with Bernadette's engineering friends and try and make a bit of money for myself as well. Like, why not?
And Kira, I'm sure when isolation is all over and life goes back to normal, our think tank are going to put their hands up to go and give you all those makeup hugs. Or at least one, especially from Sam.
And I appreciate that immensely, and just letting you know that I won't let you go.
Well, thank you so much, Kira, for coming on. Any final words or thoughts for our panel?
I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for your time and effort into helping me.
Thank you for calling us, Kira.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, so we have 2 more audience issues before a quick break and finishing our episode with our focus topic.
This one is for Alex and for Bernadette. Now, this next question is from Gary. The cat next door keeps pooping on my lawn. How do I stop it without killing the cat?
Well, Gary, what I would do is I'd sprinkle a certain spice all over the lawn. I'm not sure exactly what spice yet. We can leave that up to the panel to discuss. I'm not up to date with my spices and how they affect cats. But if we find the exact right spice, when the cat goes to do its business on it, there's going to be a very unpleasant sensation that certainly won't kill the cat. It'll just be very uncomfortable. And that'll train the cat into thinking this is a no poop zone. So like I said, it's now just a question of which spice it's going to be, which would be the most effective in teaching the cat.
Interesting. I really like the train of thought there. What about you, Bernadette? What are your thoughts in this matter? I believe you've had some experience with cats in the past.
Yes, during the coronavirus shutdown, we've kept our cat inside, and our cat doesn't enjoy that, and always, when she's kept inside, likes to do revenge wheeze and poos in places that she's not supposed to do them. How we dealt with that was firstly, you've got to clean it up, and you've got to sanitize the area and get the smell out. And you can also use bicarb soda to get the smell out. But if all else fails, what we ended up doing was putting a whole bunch of objects there, because cats tend to scratch it where they're about to wee or poo, and just, prepare the area before they do it. So we just tried to make the area as kind of inhospitable as she could be.
I think you're onto something there, Bernadette. What is something we could put in our soil that when the cat does, because you're right, they all do the little clawy thing and they do the scooping thing with their paws. What can we put in the dirt that might actually make that part of the pooping process?
Depends on how humane you want to be with the cat. I think you could always put a few mouse traps there.
But that would attract the mice that would attract the cat more, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's the problem.
I did have another idea, which was have a motion activated sprinkler. Cats hate getting wet. Just, have the cat on the ouch. Shh. Wow, they're gone.
That is certainly a good idea, Bernadette. It would, however, increase the amount of times you'd have to mow the lawn, because you're feeding the grass more often than you would be otherwise. If grass gets fed consistently, it tends to grow quite fast, and if you don't want to be mowing the lawn more often than you need to be, it's just really annoying.
That is a fair consideration, although the solution to the mowing problem would also be an additional solution to the cat pooping problem, because the noise of the lawnmower will be an additional deterrent for the cat.
And if all that doesn't work, plan C, find out if the cat's been spayed or not, and if it hasn't, find out what gender it is, give the neighbour on the other side of the cat's house a cat of the other gender and just let them go visiting over to the next door neighbours on the other side. Problem solved.
I would be hesitant to do that because it might backfire and you get 2 cats pooping on your yard instead.
Or, a
That
few months down the track, 6 cats.
maybe 6 cats, exactly.
What about the rest of our panel? Brad and Sam, are there any suggestions here that you think are goers, or is there anything you'd like to bring to the table?
Landmines.
That will paralyze the cat.
Of course.
Right.
I think we're going about this all the wrong way. Okay? We're trying to deal with this scientifically, trying to understand the cat. But what is happening here is an enemy agent committing crimes against your land under the cover of night. This is a spy/detective film that we're dealing with here. So we need to take inspiration from the greatest spy/detective film of all time, the 2002 Dana Carvey comedy Master of Disguise. They need to disguise themselves as their front lawn and lay in wait until the cat comes to commit its crime, catch it in the act.
Army camo. That's good. I like it.
No, not army camo. Disguise yourself as the lawn. Full-size, to-scale lawn costume.
I should have specified my lawn is spray painted to look like army camo constantly. That's
I
just
apologize.
I have a lot of enemies naturally, and that's a nice way of making sure I've got tabs on them at all times.
That's fine. I apologize. You are correct. Yes.
All right, lovely work, guys. I think we can we'd be confident in any of those solutions. I think they'll do the job. So we're going to move on to our next question, which we're going to send to Bradley and to Sam, and our final issue that we're going to tackle in the audience round. So our next question is in regards to being friend zoned, and the question is sent to us by Paul. Paul says, I am really attracted to a girl I've known for a long time, but just as always happens to me, I am friend zoned. How do I turn this around?
Okay, Paul, I don't want to put you specifically on blast, so this goes out to everyone who believes they're in the friend zone, and I'm going to lean into the mic for this one. Get over it. Move on with your life. Find someone who actually wants to be with you, because the girl you're pining for is not interested, and she never will be.
I agree with Sam 100% on this. We need to find solutions for this man. Convincing her to love him is not a solution.
For anyone.
If he's put himself out there and he's put his feelings on the line and she has said that she just wants to be friends, I understand that hurt. I understand the pain of heartbreak, and he has a right to grieve his heartbreak. But he can't use that that grief fuel a desire to change someone else's feelings. He would not like it if someone was to come to him and tell him, your feelings are invalid, you need to change them for the sake of me. He can't do that to her.
I completely agree, but let's assume that this is an ongoing problem for him. I mean, let's take the individual girl out of the equation. I agree, she doesn't like him, that's never going to change. She enjoys the friendship and he shouldn't lose that. But what if this is a symptom of an ongoing issue, that he's being constantly friend-zoned by all women? What is it that he's doing wrong, and how can he do better to prevent being put in the friend zone in the future?
I think that it's a tough one here, because it's very much an individual by individual basis. I mean, people are going to be friend zoned for different reasons, especially if it's happening fairly consistently. Okay, so I think we'd have to have a bit of a sit down with Paul, have him talk us through his usual courting techniques, and that way we could figure out if this is more on the romantic comedy side, where it's just a big, unfortunate situation, or if it's more on the red flag side, where he's actively doing something wrong, and then we can approach this situation from a different perspective.
Men who don't have a lot of confidence tend not to be very attractive to women. And I suppose it's in part because if they don't feel confident about themselves, then maybe that's what that low assessment of themselves is transmitted to the woman. So I've found that men who tend to pick up really well tend to be really confident. Having said that, you can go a bit too far and get creepy. It's a little bit hard to say what the hidden ingredient is. But when you see it, you see it.
I think it needs to be organic. Would you agree, Bernadette? Yeah,
Yeah.
working too hard is always going to be off-putting.
This goes back to what Sam said to start with, and that is that this is not organic. It's not happening naturally, but he does have something important. I mean, he's talking about being friend-zoned as if it's a bad thing, but you have a friend.
Exactly.
If you were going into every interaction with somebody that you could possibly be attracted to, if you're going to every interaction with the idea of romance, you're always going to be presenting a censored, sanitized, unreal version of yourself in the hopes of getting them to like you. You need to get over the thought of every interaction being an opportunity for a relationship, whether it be sexual or romantic. When you can show the real version of yourself is when people will know whether they can invest in you romantically or sexually.
I agree. It's really, really good input. And Paul, will hopefully we'll be able to get you on for a bit of a chat with the think tank so we can get to know you a little bit better as well.
So we're going to take our last break of the evening, and when we return, it'll be our final segment of the think tank, and that will be our focus group area, where we're going to turn a bad Hollywood reboot into a good film. Stay tuned. Do you miss the good old days when you got out to see your family? Well, revisit those precious memories with our patented Naughty Chair, guaranteed to be just like the one Mum used to make you use. Not convinced? Well, for only $5 more, we'll add in the Bottom Smacker attachment. But wait, there's more. The first 100 callers will also receive our award-winning chastiser. Just pull the cord to hear Australian classics like Don't Make Me Come Over There, I Don't Care Who Started It, I'm Gonna Finish It, and the all-time favourite Stop Crying or I'll Give You Something to Really Cry About. How much would you expect to pay for this luxury package? It's not $800, not $500, but only $99.99. Yes, you heard right. That's the Naughty Chair, the Bottom Smacker, and the Chastiser, all for under $100. And if you call the next 5 minutes, we'll even throw in the postage and handling for no extra cost. So don't delay, call now. Welcome back to our final segment of the Black Box Think Tank. Now, we've identified what many consider to be a bad movie. This is a Hollywood reboot of an old classic, and our think tank are challenged with the task of seeing if they can make this bad movie good. I'll read the synopsis of the movie that we've selected. Paranormal researcher Abby Yates and physicist Erin Gilbert are trying to prove that ghosts exist in modern society. When strange apparitions appear in Manhattan, Gilbert and Yates turn to engineer Gillian Holtzman for help. Also joining the team is Patty Tolan, a lifelong New Yorker who knows the city inside out. Armed with proton packs and plenty of attitude, the four women prepare for an epic battle as more than 1,000 mischievous ghosts descend on Times Square. So this is the Ghostbusters reboot. So I thought I would just open up the discussion to our panel and see what would we do to make this bad movie good.
That summary made it sound really good. Very well written.
I'm assuming that's the official synopsis for the movie.
I googled Ghostbusters reboot synopsis.
Okay, there you go. I think that before we kick this discussion off, I just want to say, obviously, if you do enjoy this movie, we're not trying to shame you for that. It's just that this is a pretty commonly unpopular movie, and I think that no movie's perfect no matter what. So if we can fix it in any way, that's a good thing overall.
I will come out straight away and say that I enjoyed this movie rewatching it yesterday.
I actually did too.
I think it is flawed, but I don't think this is a bad movie.
So you mentioned that you liked it more on the replay. Can you remember the first time you saw the movie and your feelings about it at the time?
Oh, of course. When I watched it for the first time, I wanted to be watching the original Ghostbusters, because I love the original Ghostbusters. I wanted so badly for it to be the original, I couldn't enjoy it. Watching it the other day, knowing what it is, I could appreciate it for what it is.
I'd have to agree with that.
I think, well, for one thing, I don't hate the movie. I don't think it's bad. My thing is more, I don't think it works as a Ghostbusters movie. The original Ghostbusters is probably one of the most cleverly written and well loved comedies of that era, if not of cinema. The reboot, it's not funny enough. It has a tendency to have a funny joke, but instead of letting that sit and be funny on its own, it always finds a way to just undercut the moment and make the joke weaker as a result.
Yeah, almost straight away. And I really like the idea of having some women in non-traditional sort of roles, like an engineer, a particle physicist.
It so desperately wants to be its own new thing, but is also terrified of leaving behind the iconography of the original Ghostbusters. The villain, I feel, super underdeveloped. We know that he's a genius that's been bullied, but how did that lead to him wanting to destroy the entire world? How did he know that becoming a ghost would give him all these powers that the other ghosts seemingly don't have? We've got a script that it doesn't want to do the original Stay Puft Marshmallow Man of the original, so it does almost the exact same, but with the Ghostbusters logo.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the original Crossing the Streams, but they do something very similar with the nuclear thing on top of the car. They want to do their own thing, but they're tied back, and it leaves a very uneven script. They need to commit to one or the other.
They completely disregarded the entire history, and they brought the original actors in for really lame cameos. Why did they need to wipe the slate clean and start all over again? How is that going to appeal to the audience base who are going to be tuning in, wanting the next installment after all that period of time? I'm not sure that shows a great deal of respect to the fan base, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, so now that we've sort of broken down what isn't working and how do we fix this? How do we do the movie with the same actors potentially? Because I think that we all agree that all four of the actors did a fantastic job. How do we now make this movie good?
I think it needs to decide what it wants to be. It's tackling so many different things, like bringing the old movie stuff back, having this friendship arc that goes through it, doing all this science stuff, trying to bring this whole ghosts and villain story arc. I think it needs to pick some and not try and do everything.
I think for me, the way to improve the movie the most effectively is make the script a lot tighter and more focused, refine the jokes. The actors can throw in little ad libs here and there, but there's moments where it's just like it's very clear that what the script said is that, all right, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, you're just going to stand over here and just improv for a bit, and we'll pick out the good stuff. And that leads to a very unfocused comedic tone. I also think editing would improve it a lot. There's an example I'm going to steal from Red Letter Media's review of the movie. There's a scene towards the beginning in that first haunted house where they've been called out there, and they meet the guy, and they're like, oh, okay, so we talked to Mr. Johnson on the phone, and he's like, oh, Mr. Johnson died 20 years ago. And Melissa McCarthy launches into like 20 seconds of, oh, hell yeah, that's a ghost. It's ghost time, baby. Yeah, let's go. Woo, 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 woo. And then they see this old guy next to him and is like, wait, who's that? Oh, that's Mr. Johnson's son, Mr. Johnson. Well, obviously we spoke to him. If you just cut out Melissa McCarthy's reaction and leave 2-3 seconds of silence in place of it, you get a much more suspenseful, there's more tension there, the joke lands much better, and just little edits like that can improve moments like that tenfold, I think.
My fix is maybe a bit more unorthodox than what's being suggested, and I feel we've been skirting around the issue, but I do feel like we need to address it. This movie got a lot of hate because of its gender bend recast. And I think that the movie could have utilized this in a far more effective way. What I'm proposing is you turn this movie into something like a 12th Night She's the Man kind of thing, where you've got these people and for whatever reason, they're not being accepted as Ghostbusters. So they dress as they dress in drag. They infiltrate the ghostbusting agency, and then wacky comedy shenanigans ensue, as they always do in a plot like this. And that way, this movie has its own unique identity, as well as achieving the goal of it being both Ghostbusters and not Ghostbusters. It's all about the balance, and I think throwing a curveball into the mix that the audience isn't expecting, or maybe even doesn't want, is gonna be the key factor here.
I personally don't think that's the approach, but I do also think that solves the problem of the film currently sitting in between wanting to be faithful and wanting to do its own thing. I think that is wanting to do its own thing, and I think that is far more interesting than the in-between that we got, even if it's not the film I would personally want to see.
Look, I did clarify it may not be what the audience wanted, but
Just picking up on what you said, Luke, about it totally just throwing out what had happened before. I think that is something that the audience would have probably really appreciated if we'd accepted that there'd been Ghostbusters, and now these are the new kids on the block, and now they're needed again because the other guys have solved the problem.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, and I think I don't know what was going through their minds. Obviously, they wanted to empower these women to have their own ideas and their own creations, but I guess the concern would have been stepping in to do the work that the man has created, and how do they just go in there for seconds potentially? So I understand the rationale behind wanting to start fresh. That these strong, intelligent, and incredibly funny female characters were able to do this from the ground up. I appreciate that, but there's nothing wrong with legacy. So, how would you do the next chapter in sequel while still satisfying the originality and the genius of these female characters, Bernadette?
You've already got your old cast members who were coming in anyway. Let's throw them into roles that they've been in before, that we love seeing them in, and maybe have them being mentored. And there was a theme in both movies where you have scientists who are exploring some out there version of science. They get kicked out of their professions, they get debunked, and then they go into this private industry of their own company doing this thing. It happened exactly the same way, well, relatively, in both movies. So let's say, you're down the track 20 years or however long it's been, ghosts have gone away, and people are starting to maybe think, that never happened, that's garbage, whatever, it was the 2000 bug or whatever. And then so these women who've got these great ideas, who've done this research, who are believers, can then have these old Ghostbusters to kind of give them some support, but then also start developing over the top of that and start bringing their own expertise and interests into it. Work with them rather than just have the actors walk in as forgettable characters.
And I think that actually is a great point, because you actually will see men and women working together. How can that be anything but good? And also, the fact is that they did have some originality in this movie. The first two Ghostbusters movie the villains were very ghost driven. You did not have a human element with a motive, so they had something unique there ready to go.
And I was thinking, why does it have to be all men and why all female? I think what you've said there, that women and men working together, it's actually, quite empowering, particularly if the men are not telling the women what to do the whole time, but, maybe saying, hey, you've got some great ideas out there. How are you going to make that work?
And how do they make it better as well? And especially considering we're talking about the difference between taking these older characters out of the 80s, which obviously we've come a long way since even then, in at least identifying that we want to pursue a lot of gender equality and things like that. And I think we all agree that's incredibly important to continue doing that. But what better way to do that than seeing them work together?
I think it's also worth pointing out that a lot of the things we're talking about that we would have liked to see are things that, at least from that first trailer, could very well be present in the new Ghostbusters that is coming out in a year or two, I think.
Okay.
Because, We've got female lead. It appears that the main character is Egon's granddaughter. She's into science because of her connection to Egon. You've got your legacy aspect to it. It's a totally different setting. It's like a weird rural town. So you've got a completely new set of characters, a new setting, all kinds of like it's its own thing, but it is still definitely rooted to and connected to the originals that came before it. It might turn out crap because that's the kind of movie climate we're in, where everything has to be a reboot of something else or a continuation of something else, and sometimes they turn out good, sometimes they turn out bad. That's why we're having this whole conversation, really. But fingers crossed. It's a shame that the girls who were in this reboot have kind of been shunted aside.
Yeah.
Because of all the noise and uproar around that movie in
And
favor
there was
of
just so much disgusting uproar that came out of that too, wasn't there?
Any true Ghostbusters fan should have been thrilled when they announced the cast of this Ghostbusters reboot, with the best sketch comedy performers of that era. Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones are to today's sketch comedy environment what Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis were to their time. A true Ghostbusters fan should have been thrilled. And anybody that wasn't is not a true Ghostbusters fan.
I agree. And look, that's why I was so shattered, is because when I did see the preview, I was completely oblivious to the uproar at the time. I saw it and I thought it was exciting. I loved the idea that they had 4 female fantastic performers in reinvigorating that in a modern climate where we want to see strong women in those positions. I think that's fantastic. Honestly, I like the movie. I just hate the fact that they rewrote history. So I'm excited. I'm excited that we're going to see Egon's granddaughter, and hopefully they're going to be a bit more true to the original canon while still sending out a message of equality and showing that women can kick ass as well. Let's hope the producers are listening to Think Tank and they take our considerations.
And they give us royalties.
I still think my 12th Night She's the Man approach is the best one, but never mind. Shakespeare was also rejected in his time.
I think you'll find Shakespeare was incredibly popular in his time.
I mean his early stuff.
No, he was very popular, famously successful in his time.
His sonnets were not very well received, thank you very much.
Well, I suppose you had to be there. So I think that wraps up our focus area, and I think I would trust any one of you with a responsible reboot of this beloved classic, and let's hope the one coming up is going to be a lot better and well received. So thank you very much, Think Tank. Are there any final thoughts, or over the episode, were there any of our solutions that you felt were particularly effective?
I think cataracts was a good solution to that riddle.
You got the point for it as well, so...
I do think that was a very good solution to the riddle. I actually think we've proven that we can pretty well solve pretty much any problem that the world has, and anytime they need someone, who you going to call?
The Think Tank.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the end of our first episode of Think Tank. Stay tuned to blackboxtheatre.org on Facebook as well to keep an eye out for our next episode, which will be streaming to you live. Thank you to our panel and thank you to our listeners. We'll see you next time.
Are you stuck at home? Can't work out how to connect to the worldwide internet or use that Netflix program? Well, we have a fantastic offer for anyone who has learned how to use a television. Simply tune into the Olds channel. At Olds, we've turned back the clock to simpler times, like the time where you could go down to your local RSL club for a game of housey, or enjoy a quiet beer without copping a fine or a super virus. Remember the joyful feeling when they named that Sydney Harbour boat Ferry McFerryface? Or the utter disgrace when they started introducing silly new Vegemite names like 2.0 or Vegemite with cheese? The Olds channel covers stories like that, you see, just like it was happening right now. Well, at Olds, we know you don't want news. You want Olds.
What's the best part of going into work? The money, of course. What's the next best bit? The gossip. When you work from home, the money keeps coming in, but the only source of gossip is you. Well, we have the solution to that. It's called That Bitch. That Bitch is your new one-stop source of generated fictional gossip. Remember that girl Susan, who works on reception? Well, neither do we. But That Bitch is happy to fill you in on all the juicy details. Is Susan sleeping with her boss? Having her teeth whitened? Or maybe even pregnant? That Bitch is a mine of information. How about Darren, the IT guy? Did you know that he has serious mummy issues? That he wears pants 2 sizes too small to emphasize his muscled butt? That he lives in a houseboat moored in a swamp? That Bitch has got you covered. With hundreds of fictional work buddies to choose from and thousands of scandalous scenarios, That Bitch will keep you whispering next to the water cooler for hours. Buy now, and we'll even throw in the water cooler. That Bitch. Because someone needs to say it.
At home alone? Sad? Bored? Lonely? Let Spectral Domestic Services enhance your home with your very own ghost. Select from our popular Casper, Guardian Angel, or Mrs. Muir's wise old sailor chap models. Guaranteed no poltergeists, demons, or ectoplasm, or your money back. Terms and services apply.
Do you miss the good old days when you got out to see your family? Well, revisit those precious memories with our patented Naughty Chair, guaranteed to be just like the one Mum used to make you use. Not convinced? Well, for only $5 more, we'll add in the Bottom Smacker attachment. But wait, there's more. The first 100 callers will also receive our award-winning chastiser. Just pull the cord to hear Australian classics like Don't Make Me Come Over There, I Don't Care Who Started It, I'm Gonna Finish It, and the all-time favourite Stop Crying or I'll Give You Something to Really Cry About. How much would you expect to pay for this luxury package? It's not $800, not $500, but only $99.99. Yes, you heard right. That's the Naughty Chair, the Bottom Smacker, and the Chastiser, all for under $100. And if you call the next 5 minutes, we'll even throw in the postage and handling for no extra cost. So don't delay, call now.